Sairam students, and welcome back to this session. Today we will be doing a chapter from the Beehive, that is chapter 7, Packing, written by Jerome K. Jerome. Before we begin, we will just understand a brief idea about the author. Jerome Klapka Jerome was an English writer and humorist, best known for his comic travelogue Three Men in a Boat. So he was basically an English writer who was also a humorist. He used to write a lot of stories which were filled with comic characters and some kind of humor. And the best of his works is the Three Men in a Boat, written in the year 1889. His other works include the essay collections Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, Second Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, Three Men on the Bummel, a sequel to Three Men in a Boat, and several other novels. So generally his collection included more of things related to travel and moving about. So it's more of humorous works that he has written. He joined an amateur theatre group, acting in small roles in his spare time. So he also was interested in acting. He joined the theatre group too. Finally, in 1877, he left his job to join a repertory troupe. So he got involved in this kind of acting. On 17th February 1927, Jerome was made freeman of the borough of Walsall. What does a freeman mean? That he was no more a slave, he was free in the country. So this is about the author. So now let's see what the theme or what is the basic idea of this particular chapter named Packing. So, packing is taken from the novel Three Men in a Boat. So that's an extract from his novel Three Men in a Boat. It is about the art of packing. It is based on the theme that routines are not as easy as they seem to be. So he's discussing here about what actually the art of packing is and how we need to pack. It is about a humorous incident which happened when the narrator and his two friends were packing for a boat trip. So there were incidents that took place when they were planning for a boat trip, and what kind of humorous incidents took place when they were doing the packing. The chapter humorously describes the do's and don'ts of packing. So it also explains to us what we need to remember when we are doing some kind of packing for a trip. So we need to understand how packing has to be done and how it is an art. It is not as simple as we think of it to be. Okay. So let's move ahead. Let's understand who are the basic characters in this particular lesson. First is Jerome, the narrator. The author himself is the narrator here. He is one of the characters, one of the important characters who considers himself to be the master of packing. He feels that he is the best packer in this world. Then we have Harris, a friend of the narrator who irritates him when he is packing. So he tries to disturb him when he is packing, when the narrator is packing. So Harris is a friend of the narrator. Moving ahead, the next character is George, another friend of the narrator who relaxed on the chair while he was packing is George. So George is another friend of the narrator who was relaxing in the chair when the narrator was actually doing the packing. He was doing nothing. And the fourth character is Montmorency. He was a pet dog of the narrator. He irritated and troubled all of them when the things were being packed. So, this pet dog was very troublesome, was not very well trained, probably, and irritated the narrator and his friends when the packing was being done. So, these are the four important characters in this particular lesson. So, now moving ahead, let's understand the lesson. So I just want to remind you to keep a book and a pen handy so that you could make a note of important points. I said I would pack. Here it's a narrator who is speaking. I means the narrator, that is the author, which is Jerome. I rather pride myself on my packing. Packing is one of those many things that I feel I know more about than any other person living. It surprises me myself sometimes how many such things there are. So, pride myself means he was very proud of that he would do the packing the best way. I impressed the fact upon George and Harris and told them that they had better leave the whole matter entirely to me. So he told his friends George and Harris that he would do the entire packing because he found that he did the best packing in this world. So everything would be done by the author himself. They fell into the suggestion with a readiness that had something uncanny about it. George spread himself over the easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table. So they fell into, here it means they accepted. They accepted the suggestion of the author, that is Jerome, that he would do all the packing. Readily they accepted it, and that something uncanny about it. Uncanny means strange. They also felt there was something strange about it. So George spread himself on the easy chair, relaxed himself, and Harris sat with his legs cocked on the table. They were relaxing and watching Jerome do the packing. This was hardly what I intended. What I had meant, of course, was that I should boss the job and that Harris and George should potter about under my directions, I pushing them aside every now and then with, "Oh, you, here, let me do it." So actually this was not what he intended, that they would relax and sit and watch the author packing. He had actually meant that he would supervise or boss the entire job of packing and Harris and George would obey him. They would do the packing for him. He would just be instructing them. Potter about meaning do something unimportant things. Okay, do some unimportant things under his directions because they would do something unimportant. So he decided that he would do the supervision and they would follow his instructions. But this was not that happened. And he had to say that, "Let me do it." There you are, simple enough, really teaching them, as you might say. Their taking it in the way they did irritated me. There is nothing does irritate me more than seeing other people sitting about doing nothing when I am working. So the author or the narrator was actually teaching them how the packing has to be done, and the way they were taking that irritated him a lot. He also says that nothing else irritated him than seeing people doing nothing when the other person is actually working over it. That is, he felt really irritated when he saw his friends sitting and doing nothing as the author was working and packing. I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. He would loll on the sofa and watch me doing things by the hour together. He said it did him real good to look on at me messing about. Now I am not like that. So loll means sit or stand very lazily. So he had actually lived with a person who used to do this, the same thing, sit on the sofa lazily and watch whatever the author or the narrator was doing. And he would say that it really gave him a very good feeling to just see him what he was doing and messing about with the things. But however, the narrator says that now he is not that way. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. I want to get up and superintend and walk around with my hands in my pockets and tell him what to do. It is my energetic nature. I can't help it. So, superintend means supervise. So, the narrator says that he cannot see someone else working like a slave. He also wishes to get up and supervise the work being done, walk around with his hands in his pocket and tell him what to do. He wants to instruct what to do. It is my energetic nature. He says it's his nature that he has lot of energy to move about, so that can't be helped with. So he loves to supervise. However, I did not say anything but started the packing. It seemed a longer job than I had thought it was going to be, but I got the bag finished at last and I sat on it and strapped it. Ain't you going to put the boots in? Said Harris. So he says that whatever was the case, he started the packing. Narrator did not listen to anything or say anything, but started his packing. Somehow it took a long time to finish the job. However, he finished packing at last and strapped it. He closed it and ain't you going to put the boots in? Aren't you going to put your boots in? Said Harris now. And I looked round and found I had forgotten them. That's just like Harris. He couldn't have said a word until I had got the bag shut and strapped, of course. And George laughed, one of those irritating, senseless laughs of his. They do make me so wild. So now Harris, after the entire packing was done, told Jerome that he had forgotten his boots outside. So he never reminded Harris that Harris told that he had forgotten this. So Jerome was wondering why didn't he tell this when he was actually doing the packing. So after he had shut and strapped the bag, he told this. So this made him really wild. Also, George gave that irritating, senseless laughter, which irritated him even more. I opened the bag and packed the boots in, and then, just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea occurred to me. Had I packed my toothbrush? I don't know how it is, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush. So he opened the bag again. Jerome had to open the bag and then he packed the boots in again, strapped it. But as he was closing it for the final, was strapping it, he suddenly thought whether he had actually packed his toothbrush. He also mentions that he generally has this problem of remembering whether he has actually packed his toothbrush or not. My toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling and makes my life a misery. I dream that I haven't packed it and wake up in a cold perspiration and get out of bed and hunt for it. So he says that toothbrush is like a troublesome thing. Here it means giving lot of trouble. Okay, haunts means giving lot of trouble. So he wakes up in the middle of the night to find whether to think about it whether he has actually packed his toothbrush or not. He wakes up in cold perspiration. He's sweating in tension or feeling troubled, feeling miserable, thinking whether he has actually packed his toothbrush or not. So he feels toothbrush is the most important thing we need to carry with us when we are on a trip. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it and have to unpack again to get it. And it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag, and then I repack and forget it and have to rush upstairs for it at the last moment and carry it to the railway station wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief. So here he is saying that he used to always forget to pack his toothbrush, and finally when he packs it he has to unpack it again because he has to use it in the morning, and once he uses it in the morning he forgets to repack it. So in this process finally he forgets the toothbrush in the room itself, on the table itself, and has to rush to collect it from the table, so that he then has to carry it. In the last moment he has to just wrap it in his pocket handkerchief because it is a very important thing when you are traveling. Of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course, I could not find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created and when chaos reigned. So every mortal thing means every ordinary thing. So he had to turn out everything now out to find out whether he had actually packed his toothbrush. He rummaged means he searched in a hurried or careless manner, like just digging into the bag to search whether he had actually packed it. And there was total chaos out there, total confusion just to find out whether the toothbrush had been packed. Of course, I found George's and Harris's 18 times over, but I couldn't find my own. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boot. I repacked once more. So when he was searching desperately for his toothbrush, he had found George and Harris's toothbrush more than around 18 times, but he was not able to find his own. He had put all the things out of the bag to just to search the toothbrush, and he had shaken up everything to search his toothbrush. Finally, he found his toothbrush inside a boot. So now he repacked everything again. So he had to do packing, repacking a lot many times. So he found the toothbrush finally inside a boot. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't, and I slammed the bag shut and strapped it and found that I had packed my spectacles in it and had to reopen it. So now when he had finished, he had packed the bag, strapped it, George now very irritatingly asked him whether he had packed the soap, whether he had put in the soap. So Jerome was really angry and he said that he was not worried whether there was soap or not, and he just strapped the bag and put it aside. But now what happened here? What did he find? That he had packed his spectacles inside the bag. Spectacles had to be worn on a regular basis, but he had packed it inside. So now he had to reopen the bag. He had to open the bag again. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. and then there remained the hampers to do. Harris said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours' time and thought that he and George had better do the rest. And I agreed and sat down and they had a go. So finally the packing was completed at 10:05 p.m. and there were only the hampers left. Hampers means large baskets for carrying food. So this was left which they had to carry for their journey. Harris said that they had to leave within 12 hours time and less than 12 hours time. So he told Jerome that George and himself, which is Harris and George, they would pack the rest of the thing and asked Jerome to take some rest and sit down and have some rest so that both of them could complete the other things. So they started doing the rest of the packing, whatever was left. So now what happens later? What kind of comical sides, comical incidents happens ahead? We will do it in the next class. We'll continue it in the next lecture. Now you will get a link where you will have to answer the questions given and submit the same on that particular link. Thank you.